Hello. Woohoo. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Who is here with me? This is my first time using this kind of new Facebook Live features. I had a few steps I had to go through to get here, but I'm here. Hello, everybody. I'm Tatum Roble. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist as well as a women's feminine energy coach. I specialize in working with high power women and helping them learn how to balance their masculine and feminine energy in the work they do and in the relationships they have. So, a lot of what I talk about with them is mindset, and as a coach, we dive deep into goal setting. So it is really, really cool to be here. Thank you to Mallory for reaching out. Let's see. This is telling me that I don't know what it's telling me. I wish I could see you guys. I feel like I can't see anyone. Like if there's people watching. It kind of bums me out. I'm just going to say hello, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about goal setting and mindset. But before we get into any of that, I want to thank all of you who are here, all of the teachers. I love that this group exists for you guys. This is not the easiest time to be a teacher. Like, thank you. My hat's off to you guys. So thankful for all of you and thankful that you guys have this space to come in and engage in some self-care, get some knowledge, have a support system, have a place to kind of purge and and just have one another. So I just love that. I really do wish I could figure out how to interact with you guys a little bit more because I want to be able to talk with you guys if anybody is on and watching. I hope so. So, all right. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about what goal setting means for you guys and how mindset plays a part of that. So I'm going to have my little notes because I want to make sure that I get to everything. I think first of all, I want to talk about the purpose, like the purpose of goal setting. Why do we set goals to begin with? Right? And if anyone's watching, I want to know on a scale of 1 to 5 how easy it is for you guys to stick to goals that you set for yourself. So 1 being like, I freaking struggle so hard, I get off track so fast, and 5 being like, I nail it. Like I set a goal, I go after it, I achieve it. So let me know, okay? But ultimately, goals for us are really about giving us purpose, right? And giving us something to strive for. Goals can be huge and they can be tiny. So goals aren't always like these big grandiose things. Like in a year from now, I want to have this much money or I want to accomplish this goal in my career. Sometimes, gosh, this thing is telling me to do some weird stuff. Sometimes it's really just about setting small goals, like the amount of sleep that we get, or the amount of time we're going to give ourselves for self-care. They can be tiny things. Sometimes my goal is really like just to drink enough water in a day or to remember to eat. So I don't know if anybody else experiences that. Also, I have 2 daughters, so I have 2 school-age daughters, so it has been with COVID and homeschooling, as you guys know, virtual learning, like goal setting for me has been big because I have had to navigate all that. So, but I set really small goals for myself. Sometimes they're just daily goals and sometimes they're weekly goals, monthly goals, right? So it just depends. But ultimately, goals give us a sense of purpose and they give us a sense of something to strive for. Believe it or not, goal setting is really a form of self-care. Right? So how many of you see it that way? How many of you see goal setting as self-care? Curious, let me know. Okay, so I wanted to kind of break this up into two different two different concepts, and one is the idea of actually setting goals and what that looks like, and then also the mindset that we have to have when we decide we are going to set goals, and what that really means. Okay, I'm going to push this button here because it keeps telling me that there is something that I need to do, an action I need to take. It's driving me nuts. I apologize. Okay, so what a goal should be, right? For me, I find that we don't grow in our comfort zones. That's a big, big thing. We don't grow in our comfort zones. So goals themselves really should be something that is in what I call the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is it's something that's just outside our comfort zone, but not so far outside our comfort zone that it debilitates us or cripples us to think about achieving it, or it creates procrastination or avoidance. Okay? The other thing I'm going to ask, I'm just going to sidebar for a second, but if you guys are watching this, I always recommend to everyone I work with when I'm talking is to get out your journal, if you keep like a journal or a notepad and some pen and paper, because as I kind of lay some wisdom on you, I want you to be able to write it down and remember it. And I'm sure you probably can go back and watch this video as well, but it's nice to have things written down on paper where you can see them. And I'm going to give you some tools and some mantras and things like that. And it's nice to have a place to put that. Okay? So that sweet spot. So when we talk about goal setting, we want it in the sweet spot, right? So if you're watching this and you're hearing it, or you're watching the replay of this, write that down. Sweet spot goals, right? And if you're watching this with me now, write it in the comments so I can just see that you're hearing me. Okay, so they also should be achievable with effort and work. They should push you a little bit. Again, we're always thinking just outside that comfort zone, right? The other thing is they should be measurable, but measurable up against yourself, right? Measurable against where you are now and where you want to be. So many people make the mistake of creating goals that put them in competition with other people. And that's dangerous. So here's your first mantra, okay? Comparison is the quickest road to unhappiness. Comparison is the quickest road to unhappiness, okay? So that's the first thing, that's the first mantra I want you to have. So when we're thinking about goal setting, when we're thinking about mindset, it's really important to understand that if we are setting goals for ourselves that put us in competition with other people, we run the risk of feeling like we're always failing, or we're not good enough, right? Or we're not getting it done as good as the person next to us. And that cripples our mindset. That cripples us. It makes it so hard for us to see ourselves as valuable, to see our work as valuable. And you guys are all amazing and valuable in your own ways and in your own right. And so as you set a goal, it should be, again, something that's in that sweet spot, right? That is achievable with effort and is measurable up against the person you are now to where you want to go, okay? And I don't know if any of you have heard about this, but if you've ever worked on goal setting before, like say, yeah, I've researched goal setting, but there's something called SMART goals. Has anybody heard of that? SMART goals. SMART is an acronym. Okay, so it's being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, intangible, or timely. I've seen it say timely before. So when we're talking about goals, that's one way you can make sure that your goal is going to be measurable for yourself, right? It should be a SMART goal. It should be specific, like really hone it in, and we're going to talk about how to do that in just a little bit. It should be measurable, measured up against yourself and where you want to be, right? It should be achievable. It should be in that sweet spot, right? It should be realistic. Whatever that means for you, and for everybody that's different, and that's why we don't compare. That's why comparison is the quickest road to unhappiness. Something that you really can work towards, because nothing feels worse than just constantly running after something like that rabbit that gets dragged when the dogs are racing, right? And it's like it never really catches it. It's always just a little bit ahead. So you want something that is going to be tangible, that you can get a hold of, right? With enough mindful work. Okay? So I want you to just think about that. As you hear all that, I just want you to think about, so what does that mean for me? Am I doing that? Am I doing any of the things that Tatum has just mentioned? Am I creating goals for myself? Are they in the sweet spot? Are they not? Are they tangible? Right? Are they what we would consider SMART goals? Do I find myself in comparison? Am I setting goals that are just realistic for me? And I'm comparing myself up against myself? So think about that for a second. Because I want to start to move into some of the reasons why we don't achieve goals. So blocks to achieving those goals. Okay? So this is where a lot of that mindset comes in. When we talk about blocks to achieving goals, this is where it's at. It's the mindset stuff. And it's my stuff too. Like as I'm talking with you and as I was thinking about being here today, and as I was thinking about what I was going to present and what I was going to bring to the table and offer, I also was applying it to my own life and my own world. And so what it boils down to typically is fear. Everything we want is just on the other side of fear. And there's like that old saying, like the only thing to fear is fear itself. And there's some reality to that. There's some reality to that. And that the fear that we all have that comes from within is typically rooted in other things, right? So just think for a second. When I want to set goals, or I want to achieve something, or I want to go after something, what are the fear spaces in my mind? What's the mindset that prevents that or creates a barrier? Right? And so for most of the people that I've worked with in my life, it's fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, right? And what's funny is that fear of not being good enough actually just creates its own cycle. I mean, you guys as teachers, right, and you work with students and you're trying to help them create goals for themselves as well, I'm sure that you see this too. Sometimes we can see it externally from ourselves and we have trouble seeing ourselves in it. And so that's why it's so important to be reflective and to take a look at ourselves and to lead by example, lead this next generation that you guys are interacting with. It's leading by example as well. And so how well do you walk your talk? It's hard sometimes. It's so hard. But that feeling of not being good enough, the crazy part is that when we set goals that aren't in that sweet spot or that aren't measurable or achievable, and then we have this feeling of like, I'm not going to be good enough. So we set a goal and then we start feeling like we're not going to be good enough. So we kind of procrastinate or avoid because maybe it's not in that sweet spot. So then we never achieve the goal. And then we just reinforce that mindset that we're not good enough. Holy shit. Right? And it's just so not true. You are absolutely, absolutely good enough. So another mantra, here we go. So get your pencils out. People don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. People don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. And that's what I want you to kind of remember, is that when we aren't being planful and mindful about how we're going to achieve our goals, and we don't get those goals that are in the sweet spot, and we're not actually working on a goal that is realistic, that's not very planful. And we're setting ourselves up to reinforce any of those fears we're already carrying within our own minds. Do you guys relate to that? Do you relate to that even if it's not for yourself, even if it's for the students that you work with? Right? The other piece, and I've experienced this as I've jumped into the world of coaching and working with the women I work with, is that imposter syndrome, that feeling of like, shit, should I even be here? Do I even have a right to be here, talking this talk, walking this walk, showing up for these folks? Right, so that also gets in the way. And then imposter syndrome is definitely buried in like a fear of judgment, a fear of not being good enough. Okay, and then the one other thing that I want to talk about that tends to be a block to achieving goals, and I'm going to let you in on a secret. This is one of my personal blocks, for sure. And it's all or nothing thinking. I struggle here with this. I don't know if anybody else does, but this feeling of like, if I can't do it all right now, I shouldn't do it. Or if I can't give it all in this moment, then I don't give it at all. Like I'm either in or I'm out. It's black or it's white. Trying to remember that you don't have to do everything all at once, or if you can't have it right in this very second, that's okay. That goals are allowed to take us some time, and some of them should. Some goals are immediate. They're things we can do in the right here and now, and other things have to be worked towards and worked for. And I think that that's really important to remember, right? Is this a goal that has some longevity to it, or is this like an immediate goal that I can tackle right here and right now? But that all or nothing thinking of like, if I can't accomplish it all right now or today, then what the fuck is the point, right? That's not, that mindset sets us up again to just not put in the work, which then just reinforces all of those fears, right? That I never get anything achieved. So the mind is really, really, really what's at the forefront of making sure that we can goal set. Okay, so once we can be aware of that and we can really honor ourselves and say, okay, am I in any of these spaces? Am I stuck in fear of failure? Am I stuck in fear of judgment or not being good enough? Am I comparing myself to others? And then getting back on your own page and say, okay, I've sorted that. What is my actual goal? How do I actually achieve these goals? What do I need to actually do? And one is that you have to start to believe in your mind that you're worthy of achieving it and that you can, and start to imagine what it would feel like to have it, to have achieved it, right? So there's different ways that you can work at goals, but two of my favorite, two things is the working backwards method and then one small achievable step each day. So I use those in tandem. So what I would say to you is right now, as we're talking here, think about a goal you have for yourself. Again, big, small, immediate, long-term. Just think of it. Okay? And then what you want to do is you want to work yourself backwards from that goal. So I want to have this. I want to have X. What is something I would need to do, and how long do I think it's going to take me to do X? It's going to take me a month to do it, okay, right? This is just an example. So what would I need to do, like, what would need to happen right before X was achievable? What would need to happen right before that? Okay, and what would need to happen right before that? And so then what would I need to do today? And then you start to think about that. Okay, so and money is always an easy way. Like, okay, I want to save $40 a month. So that means, okay, if I save $40 a month, that would give me X amount of dollars in a year. Okay, so that means I need to save this amount a week, this amount a day, right? So, and that's what I mean by working yourself backwards. Working yourself backwards into small bite-sized steps, right? Because we don't have to tackle it all at once. And then you say, okay, so what's one small achievable step I can do today, right? It's not like, okay, I need to do something today and I have this thing. It's I need to do something today that gets me a little bit closer to this goal I have for the month, and then a little bit closer. And it all adds up, right? Like putting a puzzle together, one piece at a time until you have the whole picture. Okay, so those are my steps. I would love to know if you guys, goal setting for you guys, if there is a strategy that any of you use that you've really, really liked. Let me know. Let me know if there's a strategy. Okay, but that's a big piece. So that mindset element, like there's that, we talk about achieving the goal, there's that behavioral piece, and then that mindset element, having a positive mindset about it, and self-talk that supports that goal, for sure. Staying out of fear. Right? So I want you to ask yourselves today, what's one mindset that I'm willing to get rid of and replace it with a bit of positive self-talk? I call these narratives. These narratives are stories we tell ourselves about what we are not capable of. So I want you to think, like, what's a narrative I always tell myself, like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this, or, oh, I can never stay on task, or whatever. I want you to get out of that, and I want you to think of a new way, to a new mantra, a new mindset, a new narrative to replace that with. Something that's positive, right? Like comparison is the quickest road to unhappiness, or, I can be planful and mindful in each day in order to achieve my long-term goals. Whatever it is, I want you just to think about that, right? And if you want to write it here in the chat or in the comments, that would be awesome. right? And if not, I want you to write it in your journals or on your pieces of paper that you're using for today. Okay? Because I think everything for me, especially as a coach, truly does boil down to mindset. The body does what the mind says. And so if we are constantly beating ourselves up, if we are constantly being hard on ourselves, if we are constantly looking for reasons why we're not going to make it, the universe is a mirror reflecting back what we put out. It's likely that it's always going to feel like you can't make it. But if you're trying to stay in a positive mindset and you're practicing being present and mindful and you're utilizing the skills and you're being planful, right? People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And you start using some of these skills that we're talking about today, goals will start to feel more real, more viable, more tangible to you. Your mind won't be at war with your body and your behavior, and everything will kind of synchronize, and you'll be able to create some beautiful things without all this resistance. Okay? So I just want you to think about that, okay? And before we end, the last thing that I want to tell you is a little story. I just want to kind of end with a story. I feel like, I don't know if anyone's ever heard this. It's the tale of the two wolves. Okay, so before we end today, I want to talk about that. But just before we end, the only other thing that I want to talk about is that goal setting also is related to change. When we're making goals, it's because we're trying to change something. And change is hard. So I need you to ask yourself, as you're working to set goals and you're working to change, are you ready to be uncomfortable? Because part of change and part of moving through goals is being willing to be a bit uncomfortable. That is, again, that sweet spot where you're just outside your comfort zone but not so far out that it's debilitating. You have to be ready and willing to kind of be honest with yourself about where you're at now and where you want to go. And the last thing I want you to think about, okay, is lots of times we think about what we're going to gain in our goals. What I want you to think about is what you'll lose. And if you're ready for that, you're ready to stick to goals. What are you willing to give up to get the thing that you want, to reach the goal you desire? That's a big thing, because that's the harder part, right? That's what's going to allow you to be dedicated and determined and stick to your plan and stick to all those kind of that SMART goals method. So you have to get your head around the fact that you also have to be willing to give things up in order to gain. And so my last mantra I'm going to leave you with is one that I love, which is short-term pain for long-term gain. And I know a lot of people are like, ugh, but it's true, right? You put in the hard work now, and that creates something beautiful later, right? So put in the work, start doing that work. Be ready to be uncomfortable, be ready to give up some things, and also be compassionate with yourself. Watch your self-talk, watch your mindset, okay? Anybody have any questions, any thoughts before we wrap up? Okay, so I am gonna wrap up with this story. And if you guys are writing comments and I'm just not seeing them, I apologize wholeheartedly. I only see my comment where I said hello. Okay, so the tale of the two wolves. I'm gonna read it because I don't want to mess it up. It says, one evening an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, my son, the battle is between two wolves inside you. One is evil. It is angry, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, forgiveness, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought about it for a minute, and then he asked his grandfather, which wolf wins? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed the most. So I want you to think about that and how that relates to mindset, right? When we are feeding a mindset that's rooted in fear or in ego or in envy, we're feeding the wrong wolf. And that only perpetuates our inability to reach our goals and to have a positive mindset about what we're capable of. Right? But when we choose to feed and focus on a mindset that's rooted in joy and peace and generosity and truth and faith and compassion, not in fear, we're able to see clearly what it is we need to do and the steps we need to take. The other thing that I'll make sure that I do too is I have a link to a really cool thing on tips for goal setting and mindset. I'm going to leave that in the comments of this video when we're done. So if anybody wants to take a look at it and look it up, this is the resource, but I'll leave the link for you guys, or I'll make sure Mallory gets it. So, all right, I had so much fun. I wish if there were comments I couldn't see, I wish that I saw them. But I will answer any questions you have. If you have any questions for me, I can see you guys in the group. But thank you so much for having me here, and thank you guys again for all that you're doing for our youth. I know that it is hard. I know that it is challenging, especially right now. I know a lot of you probably are feeling like you want to wave the white flag, possibly throw in the towel. Please know that there are so many of us that have so much gratitude and compassion for the work that you're doing, especially in these times. So thank you again for having me. It's been wonderful. I hope you all take care, and I'll see you around the group. Bye.